Hello YouTube, and welcome to my channel. Thank you for tuning in. In my opinion, there is no sadder childhood than one without a mother. I love my mom. She's an amazing and wonderful woman. Mothers are incredibly important, especially during our formative years as children. We're at our most vulnerable during our infancy and early childhood, relying on our parents for everything. Do you remember waking up from a terrible nightmare as a child, drenched in sweat and possibly even urine? Imagine that you're back in that moment, but there's no one there to comfort you. How would that feel? As a child, your mother's touch should bring peace and comfort to your heart. It has the power to soothe the pain and sorrows of your soul. Her warm and loving embrace can restore the joy of your spirit. Mothers are a valuable and priceless gift that can make the world a better place. I truly believe that. However, not every parent is fit to be one. I have been on the internet for a very long time and have been a true crime enthusiast my entire life. My mother would often catch me watching Investigation Discovery and scold me for my morbid interests at such a young age. For those of you who may not be familiar with it, Investigation Discovery, ID for short, is a pay television network that focuses on true crime documentaries. My favorite show to watch was Deadly Women. Deadly Women is a true crime documentary series that airs on ID. It features stories of women who have committed murder either alone or with accomplices. The show is hosted by former FBI criminal profiler Candice DeLong, who provides insight and analysis on the motives and methods of the killers. The show also includes interviews with experts, witnesses, and relatives of both the victim and perpetrators. Each episode has a theme such as jealousy, greed, revenge, or mental illness, and covers 3 cases that illustrate the theme. The show uses reenactments and photos to depict the crimes and their aftermaths. What made the show great was its ability to dramatize events in such a way that you couldn't help but be glued to the television from start to finish. While I cannot emulate the production quality of a show like that, I can introduce you to similar content in my own style. You're probably wondering why. Why bother? And I'll answer that with 2 words. Reality stinks. The following are some of the deadliest mothers from around the world. Brace yourself as I recount the stories of these depraved individuals. But before I get started, just know that the following content may contain elements that are not suitable for all audiences. This content is intended for a mature audience and should not be viewed by anyone under the age of 18 without parental consent. Accordingly, viewer discretion is advised. Genevieve Lhermitte. I'm going to call her Genevieve from here on out. This next story is as frustrating as it is brutal. The questions raised by the following accounts far outnumber the answers available to the public, but this is also one of the most thought-provoking and unique stories I've ever encountered. Genevieve was born on November 16, 1966, in Brussels, Belgium. She was the eldest of 3 daughters. Her 2 sisters were named Catherine and Marie, and her parents were named Michael and Marina. Both parents had decent occupations at a time when Belgium's economy was in a very good place in the 60s, so it can be safe to assume that she had a comfortable childhood. In her school years, she was described as quiet and shy with low self-confidence and was not particularly a bright student. Nevertheless, she went on to earn her diploma in French and history in 1991. For the sake of chronology, I'll explain that she met a man by the name of Boucheb Mokadem in 1989, and between the years of 1990 to 2003, the couple would get married and have 5 children. The couple lived with a man named Dr. Michael Scar. Scar was basically Mokadem's adoptive father. They became very close after Dr. Scar befriended Mokadem's family in the 70s in Morocco. Scar took care of almost everything in terms of finances and shelter for the young family, and I'm sure from the outside looking in, the unusual family seemed perfect and full of love. Being that they agreed to make Dr. Scar the godfather of the children, it's safe to assume that the first couple years of this arrangement went along pretty well. He not only paid for the couple's honeymoon, he accompanied them, even going as far as to stay in the same room with them, much to Genevieve's discontent. She would later describe how they had to wait until he fell asleep to make love. Although she was completely uncomfortable with the lack of privacy, she didn't object to the situation because she was under the impression that it would be temporary. Eventually, Genevieve would be granted leave from working as a teacher due to her postpartum depression. Mokadem would begin neglecting his paternal obligations to go visit his family in Morocco, and when he wasn't in Morocco, he would spend a lot of time in a spa relaxing or in a bar having drinks. Mokadem and Dr. Scar were completely oblivious to the ticking time bomb that was Genevieve Lhermitte. 5 consecutive pregnancies and the fact that she was often left alone in her deteriorating mental state to take care of the children had started taking its toll on her psyche. Genevieve was seeing a psychiatrist by the name of Dr. Diederik Veldekens upon Scar's recommendation. Whether or not her sessions with the doctor were helping is unclear, but things at home didn't improve. It was on February 13th, 2007, when Genevieve sent the following letter to her psychiatrist, and it reads, "Dear Doctor, I am writing to you because I do not feel well. Every morning I wake up with a sense of dread and fear, accompanied by severe stomach cramps that force me to get out of bed due to diarrhea. This discomfort persists for hours, leaving me with a constant knot in my stomach. I find myself crying frequently and feeling cold all the time. My entire left arm feels numb. There is a lump in my throat that makes it difficult to swallow. I am overwhelmed by a profound sense of sadness and despair. Even the simple act of drinking a cup of coffee in the morning has become an insurmountable challenge. I feel weak and drained of energy, constantly plagued by fear and anxiety. The future seems bleak and uncertain. I am increasingly afraid of myself. When I walk down the street, tears stream down my face uncontrollably. Whenever I try to speak to someone, my throat tightens, and I'm unable to hold back my tears. I feel as though I have lost all courage and am at the end of my rope. The prospect of a better future seems like an unattainable dream, as I feel trapped in this perpetual state of misery. Just yesterday, while browsing the kitchen utensil section of a store, I found myself checking for a sharp meat knife. I don't know how to tell my husband that I'm not well. I have always concealed the fact that I feel terrible about myself and that I have been taking medications to cope with my mental anguish. Please do something to help me. I am drowning in a sea of negative emotions and have never felt so vulnerable. At night, my sleep is restless and disturbed. I often wake up with racing thoughts that prevent me from finding peace. Sincerely, Madame Lhermitte." Upon reading the letter, he immediately reached out to her via phone and promptly brought her in. The reason for her not being hospitalized, despite the alarming contents of the letter, remain ambiguous. A final note was dispatched to Dr. Veldekens on February 27, 2007, the contents of which are as follows. "Dear Dr. Veldekens, I'm writing to you with a sense of urgency. I have been feeling unwell for the past few days and hours, and my condition is deteriorating rapidly. I am plagued by dark thoughts which I recognize as suicidal ideation that threaten to consume me. I fear that I may not only harm myself, but also my children, as I see no future for us. Each day feels like a nightmare, and I feel as though I'm already dying from the inside. Tears have become my constant companion. My friends offer support, but apart from you, there is no one else with whom I can share my feelings. No one else seems to understand me. I feel trapped in a situation of my own making, a trap from which there appears to be no escape. The pain is unbearable, and my strength is waning. I see no future for myself. My husband, who enjoys the comfortable situation in every respect, does not seem capable of saving me. Hope has become a foreign concept to me. I am convinced that my life is beyond repair. He is due to return tomorrow night, but I cannot burden him with my pain, sadness, and distress. Our family situation is irreversible. You are aware of this fact. In the past, I have harbored suicidal thoughts due to the issues with my parents and other circumstances. Therefore, I feel compelled to inform you that I have been envisioning scenarios that are as vivid as they are realistic. I fear what I might be capable of doing to myself. This is not a game. I apologize for taking up your time. Sincerely, Miss Lhermitte." According to multiple sources, Dr. Veldekens acknowledged receiving the letter, but purportedly claimed that he didn't have the bandwidth to accommodate her that day. The veracity of this claim remains unconfirmed. However, if true, this inaction arguably played a significant role in the horrifying events that unfolded merely 24 hours later. At this juncture, I'm obligated to issue a viewer discretion advisory. I would like to caution my viewers that the ensuing description of events may contain content that is not suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. This content is intended exclusively for mature audiences. If you are under the age of 18, or if such content offends you, please consider skipping to the timestamp displayed, which will also be provided in the description. You have been forewarned. For Genevieve's children, February 28, 2007 began as an ordinary day. They had just returned from school and gathered in the television room to watch Spy Kids, a popular film at the time. Meanwhile, Genevieve was in the kitchen preparing lunch for the children when she heard a voice utter the words, "La machine est en cours d'exécution." According to her statements to investigators, it was at this moment that she decided to take the children and leave forever. She penned a final note to her friend Valerie Buchra and placed all of her jewelry in a second envelope, intending for Valerie to distribute it among her two sisters. After mailing the letters, she pilfered 2 butcher knives from a store and returned home. After a moment of reflection in front of the mirror, she resolved that it was time to leave. She grabs the knife and calls her youngest daughter Mina. Wishing to avoid using the blade, she opts to strangle the little girl to death, but was unable to completely overpower the little one. So she decides to slice Mina's throat while whispering comforting words in the child's ear. Next was 3-year-old Mehdi. She again attempted to avoid bloodshed, but was unable to strangle him and proceeds to slit his throat. With the youngest out of the way, it was now time to deal with the older ones. Unsurprisingly, being that she struggled to overpower the younger ones, she decided to use deception to take care of the older ones. After beckoning 10-year-old Mina with promises of a surprise, she ties a blue handkerchief over her eyes, and once Miriam was seated, Genevieve smashes her over the head with a marble plaque. Once she was unconscious, her throat was subsequently slit. She then calls over 12-year-old Nora and asks her to sit in a chair. It's unclear if there was any struggle, but it is assumed that she just did what her mother told her. Genevieve then slit her throat from behind. Genevieve knew that Nora was Dr. Scar's favorite goddaughter, so in an attempt to hurt him, she takes some of Nora's blood and writes J-U-D on the mirror. It was later found out that she meant to write the name Judas, one of Jesus' 12 disciples. And finally, just like she did to Miriam, she tells her eldest daughter to come to the office for a surprise. But Yasmin, possibly sensing the danger, was able to dodge the attack from behind by her mother by diving onto the ground, which led to a physical altercation that resulted in Yasmin suffering many stab wounds. After one final stab into Yasmin's backside, Genevieve was able to reach her throat with the knife and slashed it. I can only imagine the feelings of regret, fear, and dread after watching the life drained from the eyes of her eldest daughter. It must have consumed her soul after realizing that all of her children were dead. She then tucks all of the children into their beds and attempts to kill herself by falling onto the knife. She then passes out, presumably due to shock. When she came to, she realized that she had missed a vital spot and would not easily succumb to her wound. She takes a red marker and scribbles "Appelez la police" on her door and called the emergency services. Investigators described how they found the children tucked in their beds with their stuffed toys in their arms. Undeniably, she was convicted on all 5 counts of first-degree murder. Her culpability was called into question due to her mental state, but the jury dismissed these concerns given the premeditated nature of her crime. She served 16 years of her life sentence before opting for euthanasia. In Belgium, the Belgian Act on Euthanasia, enacted in 2002, permits euthanasia for adults who endure constant and unbearable physical or mental suffering that cannot be alleviated. The physician is obligated to ensure that the patient is legally competent, the request is voluntary, and the patient is in a medically futile condition. Furthermore, the physician must inform the patient about their health condition and discuss potential therapeutic and palliative courses of action prior to performing euthanasia. Genevieve passed away on February 28, 2023, 16 years to the day of the death of her children. This case inspired a film that is freely available on Tubi. I will include the link to the movie in the description and strongly recommend that you watch it. However, please bear in mind that whilst this is based on real events, many details like names and chronology have been fabricated or changed for entertainment purposes, so take it with a grain of salt. Sabine Hilschenz. This upcoming narrative delves into one of the most gruesome cases in contemporary German history. I must forewarn you, the details of this case are profoundly disturbing and may evoke strong feelings of discomfort. It is without a doubt one of the most unsettling cases I have ever encountered, leaving me physically unwell as I delved into the specifics. The subject of our story is a woman born in Germany, 1966. Not much is known about her early life. She was married to a man named Oliver Hilschenz, who was her first and only known romantic partner, and the thought of living without his love was her greatest fear. In fact, the fear of solitude played a significant role in the heinous crimes she would later commit. During her court proceedings, she confessed that she and Oliver already had 3 children, and he was firmly against having any more. She stated, quote, "I had hoped that he would discover the pregnancies of his own accord," end quote. She gave birth to her 4th child in her bathroom while on the toilet, all while her husband was in the other room asleep. She was born in that toilet, and she died in it by drowning in her mother's blood in afterbirth. She gave birth to another child in 1992 in a hotel while on a business trip. She left the baby under a sheet and ignored the child's crying and screaming until it stopped. In an attempt to avoid detection, Sabine refused to consult a gynecologist and managed to conceal her subsequent 7 pregnancies. You may wonder how she could endure this ordeal 7 more times. In court, she confessed that during labor, she would consume alcohol to the point of oblivion, rendering her unable to recall whether the children were born alive or not. She also couldn't remember the precise methods she used to conceal the bodies. The grim discovery of the children's remains was made by a neighbor who was assisting Sabine's parents in cleaning out their garage. The police were promptly alerted, and investigators soon uncovered all of the other children, wrapped in plastic and hidden in flower pots, buckets, and even the family's fish tank. These tragic events unfolded between 1988 and 1998. Now, after hearing these harrowing details, you might be wondering about the length of her prison sentence. Sabine Hilschenz was sentenced to 15 years in prison. She was found guilty of manslaughter rather than murder because the court did not believe there was sufficient evidence that she had intentionally concealed her crimes. Initially charged with murder, the court reduced this to manslaughter before her trial even commenced. Tooba Yahya. Tooba Yahya was born in 1970 in Kabul, Afghanistan. Her upbringing was challenging, as she was subject to the stringent laws and customs of the country's dominant cultural norms. Little is known about her early life, but at age 17, she was compelled by her mother to marry a wealthy businessman by the name of Muhammad Shafia, who was 29 at the time. Muhammad was already married to a woman named Rona Muhammad Amir, aged 31. However, when it became apparent that Rona was infertile and unable to bear Shafia's children, he took Yahya as his second wife. The couple went on to have 7 children, with Rona serving as little more than a servant and a live-in nanny, assuming primary caretaking responsibilities for all the children. The children were named Zainab Shafia, aged 19, Hamid Shafia, aged 20, Sahar Shafia, aged 17, Giti Shafia, aged 13, and they had 3 other children whose identities were not disclosed to the public. The family led an insular life, with limited interaction outside their immediate circle. The children were not permitted to have friends or attend social gatherings independently. Before we proceed further, I would like to share my perspective on this particular parenting style. I too grew up in a strict and religious household where social interactions were limited for the sake of preserving our belief system. This is reflected in religious texts such as 1 Corinthians 15 verse 34, which states, "Do not be deceived. Evil company corrupts good habits. Awake to righteousness and do not sin, for some do not have the knowledge of God. I speak this to your shame." Similarly, in the Quran, Surah 4 verse 144 states, "O believers, do not take disbelievers as allies rather than believers. Do you wish to give Allah a clear proof against yourself?" While I understand the intent behind preserving the integrity of a household belief system through limited social interactions with those who do not share the same values, I believe that Shafia and Yahya were excessively strict with their children. Now to get back on topic, Yahya's uncle later confessed that everyone within the family circle, including school staff and teachers, was aware of the abuse and oppression that the three eldest daughters and Rona endured at the hands of Shafia and Yahya. Rona extensively documented the verbal and physical abuse she suffered in her journal. She felt trapped in her situation due to fear of retaliation from her husband's family if she returned to Afghanistan. The situation at home deteriorated to such an extent that Zainab fled to a women's shelter with the help of her secret lover. Sahar began skipping classes and stopped eating, leading her to faint at school. Giti started shoplifting and also began skipping classes. Despite multiple calls to child welfare services, no intervention was made. The children's yearning for a more Western lifestyle became increasingly evident, and eventually, the parents grew weary of their daughter's perceived dishonorable behavior towards the family. So along with their son, Hamed, they planned the murder of the three daughters. While Tooba's involvement in the actual crime remains a matter of debate, it's her actions leading up to these tragic events that warrant her inclusion in this narrative. Upon discovering her daughter's whereabouts, Tooba visited the shelter where Zainab was staying. With tear-filled eyes, she implored Zainab to return home, promising that things would change. She assured her that her father would consent to her marrying the boy he had previously disapproved of. Furthermore, she offered to rent an apartment for Zainab and live with her until the wedding, after which she would return to her husband. The emotional weight of a mother's pleas, regardless of the circumstance, can stir profound emotions. I believe Zainab's decision was influenced by the emotions evoked by her mother's tearful entreaties and the allure of an offer that seemed far more appealing than living in a woman's shelter. Unbeknownst to her, this decision would seal her fate. The wedding took place with minimal attendance. Zainab's lover later confessed that it was the happiest day of his life. However, less than 24 hours after the wedding, for reasons still unknown, Zainab messaged him stating that she couldn't leave her family and annulled the marriage. This wedding would be the last time that he saw her alive. On June 30th, 2007, 6 weeks after the wedding, as the family was returning to Canada from a fun family vacation to Niagara Falls, the bodies of Zainab, Sahar, Giti, and Rona were discovered inside a car submerged at the bottom of the Kingston Mills Lock in the Rideau Canal. It is believed they were already deceased before the car was submerged in the water, as there was no signs of any attempts to escape from the car. What I find most disturbing about this case is Tooba's crocodile tears as she mourns the loss of her daughters when media outlets arrived at their house. Unfortunately for Yahya and her husband, the evidence against them was overwhelming. After assessing the damage done to both cars involved and wiretap recordings of the couple admitting to the murder during the investigation, Yahya, Shafia, and their son Hamed were charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. They were found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life without parole for 25 years. To this day, they continue to appeal their sentence unsuccessfully. And that brings us to the end of the video. If you made it this far, you're truly awesome. I'm thrilled to announce that the 4th episode of Reality Stinks is currently in the works. In our next video, we'll be delving into the fascinating world of dreams. So yeah, stay tuned for that. I'm incredibly grateful for all of your guys' support. We're currently at 56 subscribers, which is unreal because that's double what we had just a week ago. Your support really means the world to me. And I just have a question for you guys. Who do you think was the deadliest mother out of the 3 that I listed, and why? If you'd rather not answer that question, which is totally fine, feel free to share your thoughts on this video. I genuinely enjoy responding and reading all of your comments. For those of you interested in delving deeper into each case, all of my sources will be listed in the description. There was a lot that I didn't get a chance to cover because, I wanted to keep this video under 30 minutes. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future uploads. And with all that being said, thank you so much for watching and have a good night.